Tonight's guest is Dr. Rainman. Doc, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, it's great having you. Thank you for your time. Doc, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
All right. I'm a Native American, Tuscarora, born under the sign of the Raven, people of the West Wind. I've been in a few movies, such as Tecumseh, The Last Warrior. It came out on TNT in 1995. I've been in a few films, and my passion is being a lead vocalist. And some claim me to be a shaman or medicine man.
Wow, that's an interesting bio. What part did you play in Tecumseh?
Well, I didn't actually have a speaking role, but I was a extra, which there's still thousands competing for that role. It was really exciting. They paid for everything, bussed us up to North Carolina where it was filmed, paid for the motel, plus your wages. And when you're doing something you enjoy, it really wasn't even work. It was quite an experience.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Yeah, I bet that was a lot of fun.
You bet. You bet it was.
Oh, I believe it. You've lived in the country your whole life, Doc. Not including your Dogman encounter, what's been the wildest experience you've had while living out there?
Wow. There's been lots of experiences, from supernatural things to things where I'm connected with nature. I'm really connected with all the animals around here. It boggles people's mind how the animals come out when I'm around. We have a deep connection. I have a deep connection with all animals and nature.
Is that deep connection you have with the animals why some people say that you're a shaman?
Yes. Many claim to me to be a shaman.
As far as the animals and their behavior around you, do they come up and let you pet them, or how does that work?
Well, my most outstanding experience with that would be many years ago when my father passed away. I was having a difficult time, of course. We were really close. He was my dad and best friend. And so when he had to leave this world, then it really hit me hard. And I was outside praying and talking to the Great Spirit. And I walked around having a hard time. And I walked around the corner of my house. And there beside my doghouse that I had was a small bird. And it was sitting beside my dog's pan. And it was just sitting there. And closer I stepped, it just sat there. I was like, wow. So I spoke to it. Hello, little bird. Began stepping closer, and still just sat there. And I could not believe it. And I reached down my hand, and the little bird, believe it or not, stepped up on my finger. And I'm really amazed. And I was focusing on the bird, and my problems started lifting, and my focus was turning towards the bird and everything. And I began speaking to the bird. I said, what is the matter with you, little bird? You know, are you injured? And I began walking with the bird. It's still on my finger. And I began walking around the house and talking to the bird. Now, what should I do with you, little bird? Should I release you here? Should I go put you over here in a cage and keep you? If I was one of these mean guys, I'd probably tear off a wing feather or something like that where it couldn't fly, or something stupid like that. And I just kept talking to it and thinking, what should I do with you, little bird? And so I said, well, I know exactly. I'll put you right back where I picked you up. So I proceeded to walk back where I'd originally picked him up. I put my hand down to the ground. He stepped off my finger. I took 2 steps back, and he flew away. I was so amazed. The Great Spirit was sending me a sign that my father was okay, no matter where he was. And that was a big comfort to me. And that's one thing that I wanted to say.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm so glad that happened.
Yes, I was really, really amazed and more comforted and giving me strength and faith and hope.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you were comforted. Like I said, I'm so glad that happened. From what I understand, Doc, you've seen and experienced several other things that weren't Dogman related over the past few years that shocked you. Please expand on that for us.
Yes. over the past few years, there's been many things that has happened that has almost shocked me and astonished me, which certain things in the past I would have not believed whatsoever. With a grain of salt, would I have believed some of the things that actually happened. For instance, one that really stands out to me is one day I was outside doing a little bit of recording. I like to record, the animals and nature, do different things. I post and make some creations there on Pinterest. And so I was outside and using my phone, I heard some crows right here in the distance. Of course, I live out here in the country, in the woods, pretty much, and heard several crows going over, and I just wanted to get the audio recording of these crows. So I walked down my driveway, got down by my gate, and just across the road is a line of trees there, and you could hear the crows caw, caw, coming over. And so I was panning my phone camera up toward the sky and trying to pick up the audio of the crows. And I filmed for, several minutes, and I came back into my house to review what I just filmed. And I was utterly shocked when I started reviewing it. I told my wife, honey, come and look at this. And there was something on the screen that was not there when I was outside recording. Something small, a small blue thing zipped across in front of the screen. And it would appear as, is that a little butterfly? But I'm like, no, there was nothing outside when I was recording it in front of me. But whatever it was, purposely was dancing around, similar to the way a butterfly would float around, but moved differently in awkward ways that I've never seen a butterfly fly, nothing like that. And it was just a little blue spot, but it was dancing around like a butterfly. And it would flare up as it would go up towards the sky. It was purposely staying in front of my camera. If you didn't know better, you would think that I was filming it by the way the film came out. And that wasn't the case. I was simply going where the sound of the crows was, and whatever this was purposely staying in front of my camera. So I kept watching, and it would flare up towards the sky, and it would flare out in sort of an oval shape towards the bottom in like blue and purple, really pretty colors. And after reviewing it and everything, I ruled out butterfly. I ruled out lens flare. I ruled out just about every logical thing it could have been. And so, to my deduction, you may call it a small angel or a fairy or something like that, but it was definitely something similar to this. And much more to my amazement, I went ahead and reached out to one of my friends that lives in another country over in France through one of the social apps. And I was shocked again because the girl that I spoke to didn't seem like it was a big deal. He said, yes, I used to have two of those come to my bedroom window every morning. And I was like, wow, are you kidding me? And she said, yeah, and you have to be doing something special or something really unique to have them come to you. And you should really honor that and respect them and be really kind and talk soft when they are around. And I was like, I couldn't hardly believe it. I was speechless, more or less. And so that's one of the things that now I do believe in is a type of fairy. Just because we can't see a lot of these things doesn't mean they're not there. So that's one of my best experiences as far as, learning something new and maybe even supernatural, if you want to call it, or fantasy. But there's a lot of things in this world that exist that I used to not believe in, but I do now.
Well, I can understand why you would. And that response you got from her, I'm sure that wasn't what you expected. That comes as a pretty big surprise.
No, you're exactly right. That shocked me again. I was hesitant, about even saying anything to anyone, but that made me feel a little bit better about what I was seeing.
Oh, I bet it did, and for good reason. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest on one of my 2 Bigfoot shows, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know. All right, Doc, please tell us about your encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. Now, we want to keep in mind that I live out in the country, approximately 10 miles from the closest small town. This evening that the encounter happened, I had some business to take care of in the big city, which was normal driving conditions. It'd be about an hour drive away. So it was wintertime, about February. It's hard to remember exactly what day now because it's been several years back, approximately 6 to 7 years ago, about in February, and it was really cold that evening. Snow was on. It wasn't snowing at the time, but it was really cold, and the wind was blowing. Of course, you know how that is when it's really cold and plus the wind blowing. It makes it super cold. So I had a small car, and of course, the streets were really slick, and there was a lot of snow on. So I'm being cautious, and I have to go take care of this business over in the city. Don't remember exactly what time it was, but it was later in the evening, and it was dark. And I was driving along the highway and passed through one small town, then decided to take this other little highway that kind of a shorter cut to the big city, and it was called the Port Road. They called it that because there's the port of Tecumseh where a lot of businesses take place. Tugboats and things come in, and there's like an industrial area there. So I was driving along the highway heading towards the big city, and you could see fairly well that night because it was nighttime, although the snow was on. If you can imagine snow being on, the moon was out bright. So you could see fairly well that evening. And also, as I got close to this port of Tecumseh that I'm speaking of, they have big type, stadium lights, etc., out like that. So I'm sure that shined a little more light. And so I'm driving along, and the highway kind of makes some curves around some hills there, and it's wooded and everything on your right. It's almost like a large cliff where the hill is there on your right, and you're curving around, and I'm looking to the left. And probably maybe a quarter of a mile before I actually got to the Port of Tecumseh main entrance, I'm looking off to the left, and it's like a tree line with a big open field area. And of course the snow was all on and everything. And as I was driving, I noticed something across the field, just coming out of the tree line. And I'm used to seeing animals, periodically on a daily basis. So it wasn't anything new to me, but kept glancing over, and I seen it come running across the field there towards the highway that I was on. And as it come out, I was by myself. So, but I was thinking to myself, I thought, what is this? A deer. And it was running at a pretty fast speed across the field, just up in front of me, off to the left. So if it kept running and I kept driving, we would meet up. If he kept coming and I kept driving, and so it looked like we would meet up if he kept coming towards the highway. So as it ran across the field, first I thought, is that a deer? The way it was running, and I ruled that out. No, is it a bear? Because it looked similar to a bear. And of course, the closer it got, and the more I kept driving, the better I could make it out. And of course, I had to keep my eyes on the road too. But as it came across the field, it was running at a really high rate of speed, and I thought, well, now it's not running with a bounce like I've seen most animals, like a deer, up and down type, front and back bounce type. That's the reason I thought, is it a bear? It was like running in a straight line without bouncing up and down, and at a real smooth gait. And it appeared to be running, its front arms or front legs was moving at the same time instead of 1 2 1 2. Both was kind of like what you've seen a monkey on TV or something like that when they run and they swing their back legs up, and their front hands are going forward at the exact same time, kind of a swinging motion, and it kept them at a smooth, straight gait. And that's the reason I thought it might have been a bear. Well, it kept coming, and I thought, no, what is this thing? And all of a sudden, it was there. I thought, surely it won't come meet me at this exact same time. But as we proceeded, and all this was happening really fast, and I'm just trying to break it down where you can see more my visual of it. As it come across the highway there, it come right in front, just barely in front of my car, and I clipped it, and I could tell that it had brown fur all over. It was on all fours, but more of an upright position. But in this upright position and on all fours, of course, like I said, its front arms or legs, whatever you would like to call it, was reaching plumb to the ground, as if, a regular sized man would be just kind of at a squat, but then if your arms could reach all the way to the ground. And on top of its head, it was brown all over, but on top of its head and maybe back of its neck there, like I said, it was just a flash and it was dark. So, but I definitely know what I saw. And it had black, long, real long, thin, straggly hairs on top, similar to what a warthog has. And so I thought, deer, bear, warthog? No, it was neither of these. And I know my animals. And I'd never seen anything like this. It happened quickly, and I wasn't able to see the front of its face to where I couldn't tell you if it had a long muzzle or if it had a flatter face like a human or what. But it was definitely on all fours. Its front arms or legs was extra long, reaching the ground. And it was on all fours, but yet more of an upright position, and probably 3.5 foot tall in that squatting position, because when I clipped him, his head and shoulders was just above the front of the car. And it definitely had long straggly hair on top, black long straggly hair. It was brown all over, and its ears were extra large and pointed, sharp, and folded back. As animals or a horse, when they run, their ears fold back, and that's the way it was. But the ears were folded back, but they were long and sharp, and come to a point. And when I clipped that thing, it was like if you'd hit a gorilla or something like that. You could tell it was really solid. Or if you was driving, 50 miles an hour and brushed up beside a brick wall or something like that. That's how it seemed whenever I clipped it. And I was so amazed. As I said, I was driving by myself, but I verbally, out loud, I looked up in the rear view as I clipped him, and I said to myself out loud, what kind of beast was that? And I felt shivers go up the back of my spine, and I just kept driving. And I couldn't get it off my mind about what this thing could have been. I couldn't hardly believe my eyes, because I knew exactly what I saw, and I knew that I'd never seen an animal that looked like this or fit this description. So I went ahead and proceeded to go to the city and take care of that business, which the whole time I couldn't get this situation off my mind, really. But I made the trip, and it was cold, and it took a while to get back home, and it was late at night. So when I got back, I went ahead and went on to bed. My wife was asleep. But the next morning, I began to tell her about it. I was hesitant about even telling her because it sounded kind of outlandish, really, but it really happened. And so I told her about it. And I took a piece of paper. I said, "Let me show you. I'm not a real good artist, but I can draw a little bit, and where you can pretty much tell what I'm drawing." And so I draw it out to the best that I could of what I'd actually witnessed and hit with my car. And my wife couldn't hardly believe it either. And so we began to research a little bit. And this is before, I even heard of Dogman or lichen or anything like this. But I began to look, and I found closest to what I had seen. I believe I was looking on Pinterest or through Chrome, and it brought up lichen and Dogman, and I couldn't believe it, because I had never even seen or knew what Dogman or lichen looked like or anything whatsoever. But there were several different pictures that looked very, very close to what I had actually seen and what I had drawn out on this paper. And so that's when I found you and gave you a Gmail. That's pretty much about my encounter. But like I said, how unbelievable it sounds. I saw it with my eyes, and I can't hardly believe it, but it happened. True as rain.
It might be hard for you to believe, but I believe you. That's a fact. How far were you from home where you had that encounter, Doc?
Let's see. Maybe 30, 40 miles from the house, from my home. Out on it was a highway, but it was only a small 2-lane highway. It was kind of a back road highway, if you will.
30 to 40 miles. Has anything happened around your property since that night that you think might have been Dogman related?
Well, no, I can't really say that there has. That's about the only thing associated with this that I've encountered. It never got off my mind, though. It's been several years, and I can still see it like yesterday.
Oh, I believe it. I'm sure that experience is still on your mind. Yeah, that's totally normal. How much of an effect has that experience had on your interest in living out in the country, though?
Well, it hasn't really affected me in any way like that. I'm just shocked in my mind that something like this is really out there, and it makes you full of questions. A lot of times when something happens or someone tells me something, the spirits usually tell me different things that normal people wouldn't know, and I talk to the spirits. And the very first thing that came to me was, for some reason, I felt like that this thing, whatever it was, may have rode in on like one of those tugboats from another country or from somewhere way off. He was making a beeline because he was running from this industrial area, from the Port of Tecumseh, towards the hills, towards the woods. And it definitely was either afraid of something or trying to get somewhere, or it had a specific destination or something. I'm not sure. But it acted like it didn't even see my car whatsoever, like it was going to run it over or something. It just made a beeline, straight towards this hill, and I clipped him. And I just felt like that it could even been, like I said, I didn't have any knowledge of these dogmen. But at the time, I felt like it may have been something, of course, our high technology scientists and all this type of thing that they have nowadays. I felt like it was a DNA crossed with a human or something, and it had gotten out of control or gotten loose from them or something like that and rode in on a tugboat maybe or something like that. But that was my first feeling of it.
So it's coming from the port of Tecumseh. That's interesting. When you saw it for the first time, could you see the industrial area of the port right behind it, or was there a woods between it and the port?
Well, there you got the industrial area, and then there was like a small patch of woods or a line of woods between the industrial and the highway. It was like the industrial area, a small line of trees, a little bit of woods, and then that open field, and then the highway. So you come from somewhere over in the port and come through the woods and then come across that field. So, it was coming from out of the industrial area there somewhere. So it didn't come out of the woods when I saw it. It was running back towards the woods. So that's part of what gave me the impression that, it come in on a boat or something.
Wow, that's interesting. It really does make you wonder. That's for sure. Due to the snow, you said you weren't driving all that fast. How slow would you say you were going when you saw it, though?
Well, it's been several years back now, but I wasn't going maybe 40, 50 miles an hour probably, I'd say. The speed limit was 65 and the roads were slick, and I was being cautious. So yeah, I'd say between 40 and 50 miles an hour when I hit him.
I see. Well, that's faster than I thought you were going. Did you ever get a good look at its claws?
No, I sure didn't. I wasn't able to see the facial feature or the feet or claws area. I made out the entire body, though, the ears, the back of the neck, the long hair on top, and the extra long arms was evident. Everything was pretty plain except for the face and the extension of the hands or feet. Also, I'd like to add, me thinking, was it a deer or a bear right first? I didn't see a long tail, so it appeared to not either have a tail or maybe a small tail. I couldn't say that for sure, but it appeared to not have a tail.
Well, you had so many things going through your mind, no one could fault you for not knowing if it had a tail or not. You're just trying to get through this experience in one piece.
Right. I never once thought about going back to see if I'd actually knocked him off into the ditch or anything like that. I was just shocked and just kept driving.
Oh, I bet you were shocked. Yeah, anyone would be.
I still am.
Oh, I bet you are. You said you didn't get a good look at its claws, but how'd it seem to be holding its fingers as it was running toward you on all fours? Could you tell?
Well, like I said, it was dark, and a lot of it happened really, really quick. So I couldn't really say for sure, but the impression that I got, and from what I saw, was like on its knuckles, like a gorilla or a chimpanzee would run on their arms sometimes with their knuckles down. That's what I feel like. It's the appearance that I got.
Yeah, running that way with your hands open, with long claws, that would be awfully difficult, so.
Right. For a little bit, I even thought a monkey. I can't, I wish I could more describe the way it was running, but it was extending both front at the same time and like swinging it in that real smooth gait. I don't know if you could visualize that or not, but.
I can. So basically, it looked like a person on crutches.
Yeah, moving at a high rate of speed. Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about exactly. You said its ears were long and sharp, but how long would you say they were?
Boy, with its size and everything, they were at least the size of a German Shepherd's ears, if not bigger, what I saw. Very sharp, very pointed, but folded back as it was running. But you could definitely tell they was pretty big, and they would stand up, if you didn't have them folded back. But yeah, it was a little frightening in a way.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Did you ever hear it make any sounds when it was next to you?
I did not. No. But now, when the car hit him, and like I said, it seemed very solid. When I drive, I'm pretty much a professional driver. I drove just about every type of vehicle there is, and had delivery driver jobs, bus driver in the past, big trucks, everything. So when I drive, the vehicle is just pretty much almost an extension of my body. And the way I could feel it when I bumped him, it was almost like you hit something really solid. You could tell he was solid. And I don't believe it really hurt him. But what was also amazing about it was, as hard as it hit him and everything, when I looked at my car, you wouldn't think I had struck anything. There wasn't a dent, there wasn't a scratch, there was nothing on my car. So that was shocking too.
It seems shocking at first glance, but a lot of eyewitnesses who hit a Dogman with their car, they report that. They get out and look and no damage. Did it ever seem to focus on you, or did it stay focused on the direction it was heading away from the port?
It seemed to be focused on something. It acted like it didn't even, from my impression, it seemed to not even see me or the car. But I don't know, I don't know if it was seeing the headlights and thought, I don't know. But it seemed to be really focused on, just making a straight beeline, like it had blinders on or something, you'd think, and just had something straight in forward. No matter what it would meet up with or whatever, it was destined to just head straight towards that hill. And as I drove back in the daytime, I was like, wait a minute. Now, if that thing come across that field, because I could see the field much better in the daytime, if it came across this field here, there's about a 12 to a 15-foot chain link fence right over there, just a few hundred feet. And so if it came across there like it did that night, it had to have either barreled through that fence or jumped the fence or something like that, or climbed it really fast, because which I had to keep my eyes on the road also, but I didn't never see it. I didn't even realize at the time that there was a fence there, but looking now, it had to, I guess it probably jumped it like a deer, is all I can figure. If it did, it can really jump.
Well, they can jump like you wouldn't believe, so yeah, that's probably what he did. You said that you were hesitant to tell your wife about what happened to you the night before. Is she really skeptical?
Well, I knew how skeptical I was, and I could barely believe it, and I saw it, and it happened to me. So I was a little leery about saying anything to anybody, really. But, how some people would say, oh, boy, what was you on that night? Or something like that, But, yeah, I didn't really mind to tell her, but it's still a little odd. It's almost like, I know, I'm telling it, and it happened to me, but I barely believe it myself.
That's natural. Yeah, it's not something that's going to be easy to talk about.
Right.
How much research have you put into them since you had that experience, Doc?
Well, not a whole lot research, but enough to try to discover what it was that I actually hit that night. And I'm just now really learning more from you also about information about this type of beast.
Since you didn't see its head, it could have been something else, a different kind of cryptid, but if it was a different kind of cryptid, I really don't know what it could have been, considering it had those pointed ears and those other anatomical features you told us about. It's possible it was something else, but I'd put down good money it was a Dogman.
From everything I've learned recently, I guess that's what I would label it also, because I've ruled out just about everything else. If you could imagine, the only other thing is a warthog, but a warthog upright with real long front arms, I don't think so.
No, definitely not a warthog.
Right.
Did you know from your research that Oklahoma could actually be considered to be a hotspot for Dogmen?
I did not.
Yeah, a lot of Dogman encounters happen there.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, they do.
Wow.
Well, before I ask you for any closing comments, Doc, you mentioned that you had a Pinterest page a bit ago. Would you like to promote it?
Yes, I'd like to invite anyone that would be interested to check those out. I put a lot of my heart and soul into these creations. Some are just for fun, but most are as serious as it gets, and might learn a little thing or two.
If you can send me a link to that page, I'll be more than happy to put that link in the description for tonight's show.
I will definitely do that.
Consider it done then. Well, Doc, before we get out of here, do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Well, I'd like to say to everyone to not rule everything out. Don't immediately rule things out until you know for sure, because in the past I've ruled some things out that I had to rule back in. So you never know what's out there in the woods, especially.
That's right, you never do know. Maybe it's a good thing we don't know about everything that's out there, though.
That's right.
Well, Doc, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks again so much. Have a great night.